Book 12, Part 1 of Ovid's Metamorphoses. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Michael Wolff. Metamorphoses by Publius Ovidius Naso. Translated by Brooks Moore. Book 12, Part 1. Sadly, his father Priam mourned for him, not knowing that young Aesacus had assumed wings on his shoulders and was yet alive. Then also Hector with his brothers made complete but unavailing sacrifice upon a tomb which bore his carved name. Paris was absent, but soon afterwards he brought into that land a ravished wife, Helen, the cause of a disastrous war, together with 1,000 ships, and all the great Pelasgian nation. Vengeance would not long have been delayed, but the fierce winds raged over seas impassable, and held the ships at fishy Aulis. They could not be moved from the Boeotian land. Here, when a sacrifice had been prepared to Jove, according to the custom of their land, and when the ancient altar glowed with fire, the Greeks observed an azure-coloured snake crawling up in a plane tree near the place where they had just begun their sacrifice. Among the highest branches was a nest, with twice 4 birds, and those the serpent seized together with the mother bird as she was fluttering round her loss. And every bird the serpent buried in his greedy maw. All stood amazed, but Calchas, who perceived the truth, exclaimed, "Rejoice, Pelasgian men, for we shall conquer, Troy will fall. Although the toil of war must long continue, so the 9 birds equal 9 long years of war." And while he prophesied, the serpent, coiled about the tree, was transformed to a stone, curled crooked as a snake. But Nereus stormed in those Aeonian waves, and not a ship moved forward. Some declared that Neptune thus was aiding Troy, because he built the walls of that great city. Not so Calchas, son of Thestor. He knew all the truth, and told them plainly that a virgin's blood alone might end a virgin goddess's wrath. The public good at last prevailed above affection, and the duty of a king at last proved stronger than a father's love, when Iphigenia, as a sacrifice, stood by the altar with her weeping maids, and was about to offer her chaste blood, the goddess, moved by pity, spread a mist before their eyes, amid the sacred rites and mournful supplications. It is said she left a hind there in the maiden's place, and carried Iphigenia away. The hind, as it was fitting, calmed Diana's rage, and also calmed the anger of the sea. The 1,000 ships received the winds astern, and gained the Phrygian shore. There is a spot convenient in the centre of the world, between the land and sea and the wide heavens, the meeting of the threefold universe. From there is seen all things that anywhere exist, although in distant regions far. And there all sounds of earth and space are heard. Fame is possessor of this chosen place, and has her habitation in a tower which aids her view from that exalted heighs. And she has fixed there numerous avenues and openings, 1,000 to a tower, and no gates with closed entrance, for the house is open, night and day, of sounding brass, re-echoing the tones of every voice. It must repeat, whatever it may hear. And there is no rest and silence in no part. There is no clamour, but the murmuring sound of subdued voices, such as may arise from waves of a far sea, which one may hear who listens at a distance, or the sound which ends a thunderclap when Jupiter has clashed black clouds together. Fickle crowds are always in that hall that come and go, and myriad rumours, false tales mixed with true, are circulated in confusing words. Some fill their empty ears with all this talk, and some spread elsewhere all that's told to them. The volume of wild fiction grows apace, and each narrator adds to what he hears. Credulity is there, and rash mistake, and empty joy, and coward fear alarmed by quick sedition, and soft whisper, all of doubtful life. Fame sees what things are done in heaven and on the sea and on the earth. She spies all things in the wide universe. Fame now had spread the tidings. A great fleet of Greek ships was at that time on its way, an army of brave men. The Trojans stood all ready to prevent the hostile Greeks from landing on their shores. By the decree of fate, the first man killed of the invaders' force was strong Protesilaus, by the spear of valiant Hector, whose unthought-of power at that time was discovered by the Greeks to their great cost. The Phrygians also learned, at no small cost of blood, What warlike strength came from the Grecian land? The Stygian shores grew red with death-blood. Cygnus, Neptune's son, there slew 1,000 men, for which, in wrath, Achilles pressed his rapid chariot straight through the Trojan army, making a lane with his great spear, shaped from a Pelion tree. And as he sought through the fierce battle's press, either for Cygnus or for Hector, he met Cygnus and engaged at once with him. Fate had preserved great Hector from such foe till 10 years from that day. Cheering his steeds, their white necks pressed upon the straining yoke, he steered the chariot towards his foe, and brandishing the spear with his strong arm, he cried, "Whoever you may be, you have the consolation of a glorious death. You die by me, Haemonian Achilles." His heavy spear flew after the fierce words. Although the spear was whirled direct and true, yet nothing it availed with sharpened point. It only bruised, as with a blunted stroke, the breast of Cygnus. "By report we knew of you before this battle, goddess-born." The other answered him, "But why are you surprised that I escaped the threatened wound?" Achilles was surprised. "This helmet crowned, great with its tawny horsehair, and this shield, broad-hollowed, on my left arm, are not held for help in war. They are but ornament, as Mars wears armour. All of them shall be put off, and I will fight with you unhurt. It is a privilege that I was born, not as you, of a Nereid, but of him whose powerful rule is over Nereus, his daughters, and their ocean." So he spoke. Immediately he threw his spear against Achilles, destined to pierce the curving shield through brass, and through 9 folds of tough bull's hide. It stopped there, for it could not pierce the 10th. The hero wrenched it out, and hurled again a quivering spear at Cygnus, with great strength. The Trojan stood unwounded and unharmed. Nor did a 3rd spear injure Cygnus, though he stood there with his body all exposed. Achilles raged at this, as a wild bull in open circus, when with dreadful horns he butts against the hanging purple robes which stir his wrath, and there observes how they evade him, quite unharmed by his attack. Achilles then examined his good spear, to see if by some chance the iron point was broken from it, but the point was firm, fixed on the wooden shaft. "My hand is weak," he said, "but is it possible its strength forsook me, though it never has before? For surely I had my accustomed strength when first I overthrew Lyrnessus' walls, or when I won the isle of Tenedos, or Thebes, then under King Eetion, and I drenched both with their own people's blood, or when the river Cacus ran red with slaughter of its people, or when twice Telephus felt the virtue of my spear. On this field also, where such heaps lie slain, my right hand surely has proved its true might, and it is mighty." So he spoke of strength remembered. But as if in proof against his own distrust, he hurled a spear against Menoetes, a soldier in the Lycian ranks. The sharp spear tore the victim's coat of mail and pierced his breast beneath. Achilles, when he saw his dying head strike on the earth, wrenched the same spear from out the reeking wound, and said, "This is the hand, and this the spear I conquered with, and I will use the same against him who in luck escaped their power, and the result should favour, as I pray, the helpful gods." And as he said such words, in haste he hurled his ashen spear again at Cygnus. It went straight and struck unshunned. Resounding on the shoulder of that foe, it bounced back as if it hit a wall or solid cliff. Yet when Achilles saw just where the spear struck, Cygnus there was stained with blood, he instantly rejoiced, but vainly, for it was Menoetes' blood. Then in his sudden rage Achilles leapt down headlong from his lofty chariot, and seeking his god-favoured foe, he struck in conflict fiercely with his gleaming sword. Although he saw that he had pierced both shield and helmet through, he did not harm the foe, his sword was even blunted on the flesh. Achilles could not hold himself for rage, but furious, with his sword hilt and his shield, he battered wildly the uncovered face and hollow temples of his Trojan foe. Cygnus gave way. Achilles rushed on him, buffeting fiercely, so that he could not recover from the shock. Fear seized upon Cygnus, and darkness swam before his eyes. Then, as he moved back with retreating steps, a large stone hindered him and blocked his way. His back pushed against this. Achilles seized and dashed him violently to the ground. Then, pressing with buckler and hard knees the breast of Cygnus,